Next, a leading developer is planning to build a huge new freight depot near Castle Donington, close to the borders of Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire and Leicestershire. So big, in fact, that the company Roxhill claim it could create up to 6,000 new jobs. Well, they've been speaking for the first time about the project to our political editor, John Hess.
Another delivery, another heavy lorry on our congested roads. This is junction 24 of the M1 motorway near East Midlands Airport. Tucked away from the sight of passing drivers, farmland that could make way for a huge distribution centre, a transport interchange linking the rail and motorway networks. There have been consultation meetings with local residents, but some are outraged at the prospects of the noise and disruption. The company behind the scheme, Roxhill, is unrepentant. One of its directors, Kate Bedson, gave the Sunday Politics the company's first media interview about its rail interchange ambitions.
This site will effectively act as a kind of inland port for the goods that are coming from overseas, both Europe and the Far East. We're expecting to develop up to 6 million square feet. The evidence suggests that will generate at least 6,000 jobs.
An existing freight line linking Nottingham and Birmingham would be extended to the proposed site.
Junction 24 is a very important junction for the region. It's very close to capacity at the moment. The work we're hoping to do there will improve, effectively bypass Junction 24. We're proposing to do work to Junction 23A, Junction 24, Junction 24A, and put in a new Kegworth bypass, all of which will ease the road network, as well as making it easy to get freight here and get it onto the rail.
And that sort of talk is attracting influential backing.
It's also an opportunity for us to link both rail and air transport. This is the second largest air transport for freight in the UK. The opportunity then of linking rail to it will be an enormous strategic advantage for this area.
It would put over £10 million of business rates into the local council as well. We do need jobs, we do need economic growth. That is a major factor.
At a time of economic recession and a lack of employment opportunities, you would have thought that the prospect of 6,000 jobs would have been welcomed with open arms. But not here, it seems.
I don't think for a minute it can be 6,000 permanent jobs. And even if there are 6,000 permanent jobs, the unemployment here is very low. So that's going to be 6,000 people coming into here when we're already under strain on the busiest motorway junction in the country.
Residents from the nearby villages of Hemmington and Lockington are fighting the development.
The village itself will be completely ring-fenced by a railway system and continual 24/7 freight traffic movement.
Magna Park, just off the M1 near Lutterworth in South Leicestershire. Is this the shape of warehousing to come? 15 miles further south on the M1 in Northamptonshire, the Daventry Rail Freight Terminal wants to expand.
I think if you want to create 6,000 jobs, if that's what it's going to be, get that development done and then reassess what is actually required in this immediate area.
The government wants a network of such rail interchanges to take more freight off the roads. Indeed, the Transport Secretary, Justin Greening, says the government is considering taking measures to what she calls unblock obstacles in the way of such construction. Now, by that she means the government may consider planning powers to approve rail and transport infrastructure projects deemed to be of national significance.
I'm a supporter of the government's policy on strategic rail freight interchanges. We need to get cargo off the roads and onto rail. It's going to be good for the environment and good for business.
Back at her village home in Hemmington, Tony Harrington is planning the next stage in her Facebook and leaflet campaign to block the scheme.
We've had 5,000 printed. We're going to get those out to every household across Castle Donington, Lockington, Hemmington and Kegworth.
This form of transport remains a welcome sight in the village. The proposed rail freight interchange is set to be an unwelcome neighbour. The residents say it's not a done deal yet, but the economic case may prove to be too powerful and persuasive for government.
Clearly, Richard, there are a number of hurdles to clear first, but before we talk about any of those, you must welcome the prospect of new jobs.
I think if there were no villages anywhere near Junction 24, it would be very easy to say, yeah, we'll have the jobs, we'll have the business rates, and we'll plough that money back into the economy and create jobs. Unfortunately, or fortunately in some ways, there are 4 lovely villages there: Hemmington, Lockington, Kegworth and Castle Donington, very ancient villages where a lot of people live there a long time, and their lives and their future in those villages is now under threat.
But we have lost an awful lot of jobs, haven't we, Anne, in the East Midlands, including redundancies, as we know, from Egg, Thorntons and Bombardier. This could be great news for our regional economy.
It could be, and I think in principle you have to welcome jobs and investment at times like these. I think the issue is that, as was said on the clip, that this particular area is not an area of high unemployment as areas further up the M1 are. I do think, though, when you're looking at this sort of strategic freight interchange, there are very few places that have the advantages that this site has. It's next to the motorway, it's got a rail link, it's next to the airport, it's near large conurbations as well. So you'd struggle to find a site that's got as many advantages as that.
And Andrew Bridgen estimates that this scheme could actually bring in £10 million in business rates. I'm sure you'd like to get your council would like to get its hands on that money.
The government said they're going to give business rates back to councils. Of course, when they've done the figures and the civil servants have been through it, we get about 10% back, which will help, don't get me wrong. The other thing which is quite clever about it, the best thing they've done with the proposal we've seen so far, is to actually take the pressure off the M1. And the other thing they've done, which mustn't be discounted, is they are going to provide a bypass for Kegworth. The government are never in the next 20 years going to afford a bypass for Kegworth.
So there are some positives, but it was only in March last year that your council said, and I'll quote, "We are now proposing to not allocate any land for strategic distribution in the district." Is that still your position?
The fact is the decision will not be taken by our district, although we are the planning authority for the area. It will be taken in Bristol, which again is a concern for the local people. What we've got to do as local politicians is try and win as many concessions as possible. And I met the applicants and I said the first thing you've got to do is go and sit down individually with every parish council, every borough councillor and everybody in the area and convince them that you can put this in here and mitigate the damage to the villages, and that's the challenge that
So you are seeking for assurances from Wroxhill then?
That is our job. We're local politicians. We don't have to, thankfully, look for the whole of the economy of the UK. We're looking after North West Leicestershire, which incidentally has half the unemployment, the national unemployment rate. So we're not desperate for jobs. But if jobs do come, I know in Derbyshire, where there is far more unemployment, it's a slightly strange position. Where it's situated is an area that is not crying out for jobs, but areas within 10 miles do need the jobs.
Well, you mentioned the concerns of local residents. Obviously, that's got to be looked at and considered and taken into consideration in this. And local residents do say that before this proposal gathers any more momentum, you should look at the expanding existing depots at Lutterworth and Daventry should be looked at instead of swallowing up even more farmland.
That's true, and I'm sure within the immediate area there may not be great levels of unemployment, but within that sort of band beyond that, unemployment is an issue, and if you get to Nottingham, Derby and beyond, it's a significant issue. So for me, if that is the site that's chosen and is developed and there are 6,000 jobs on offer, we've got to look at transport networks to allow people to access those jobs.
And the Transport Minister, Justine Greening, has championed, hasn't she, these integrated rail schemes. The coalition's already talking about taking measures to speed up the planning process to allow these things to happen.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between the strategic, the national importance of this and making it accessible to local. So it's the next tier down of highway development and improvement that needs to be looked at to make sure we don't deal with the immediate site and the connections that needs,
so briefly,
and cause problems
next,
elsewhere.
Can I just give you one number to think about? That's
Please.
500 metres.
Right.
Now, we live in villages. 500 metres is the distance to Lockington, to Hemington, to Carstonington and to Kegworth. And that, to me...
So you'd like the people in Bristol to take that into account,
500
I'm sure.
metres is not a big distance. And
I
that's
hear what
my
you're
concern.
saying. OK, let's leave it there. And have a quick look now at some of the other political stories in the East Midlands with John Hess.
The police are investigating the European travel expenses of Leicestershire Conservative leader David Parsons. He's already been censured by the County Council's Standards Committee for breaching its code of conduct. Nottingham South MP Lillian Greenwood is urging the government not to cut its grant for social housing improvements. She claims those already completed have saved pensioners' lives by making them warmer in winter.
I hope that the Minister will confirm the funding and enable Nottingham City Homes to finish this essential work.
Leicester West MP Liz Kendall praised New College for being one of the country's top 10 improving schools. And she warned Education Secretary Michael Gove that his plans to reintroduce O-levels would crush motivated students. Finally, Liberal Democrats in Derbyshire won't be putting up anyone to stand for elected police commissioner in the county. The party's crime spokesman, Councillor Tony Rogers, insists it's a stupid idea and will come back to bite the Tories.
Well, the man in question, Tony Rogers, is here, as you can see. Tony, colourful language. It'll come back to bite the Tories. How exactly?
Well, I think it's fraught with danger, quite frankly. I'm totally opposed to party politics within the police forces. And if you have just one person who's totally responsible, can hire and sack the chief constable, and the only people, in my view, which will be able to afford to stand for the police commissioner are political parties, which means to say that the chances are...
So you don't want them and you don't think we need them, really? Is that what you're saying?
Well, is the Prime Minister saying that our police force in the past and police authorities have been absolute rubbish? I don't think so.
Richard?
I think they've done a very good job, and what I'm saying is, why do away with something which is brutally good?
He's basically saying if it ain't broke, why fix it?
I think it is broken. There's no doubt, in my view, everybody who's been associated with the police, from local council level, councillors, have generally gone native. Everybody I've ever spoken to says, yeah, the police are fine, there may be a problem, but let me explain, it's all under control. I do believe the accountability between the general public and the police is not working at the moment. I think this is a high-risk strategy, no doubt. I think a little bit like Boris in London, it all depends on the character and calibre of the person who's given this job.
Because we don't know quite what we're getting yet, but we know that we're getting elected police commissioners as a result of coalition legislation. So you're effectively defying your own party.
No, our own party is totally opposed to the policy of police commissioners. It just happened to be one of the Tory policies which we couldn't keep out of the coalition agreement. We managed to keep a lot of right-wing Tory philosophy out of the coalition agreement, but this is not one of them.
Well, Lord Lib Dem Minister Ed Davey told us this week that he would expect Lib Dems to field candidates or at least get behind one. That kind of puts you on the spot, doesn't it, in the light of what you're doing?
No, not at all. What the party nationally has decided is to leave it go to the regions, and on a democratic vote, the regional parties can decide what they want to do. We'll be standing one, which is Northampton, because we actually have a person there who I think is highly suitable to be a police commissioner, who'll probably win the seat.
Is one enough?
Well, it's really up to each individual counties, and that's the only county that really wants to stand a candidate as a police commissioner.
Okay, well,
I think there's a difference here between reality and what's being said. You know, we are where we are. Police commissioners are coming in whether we agree with it or not, and certainly in Derbyshire our candidate Alan Charles and the rest of us don't agree with it, but we're stuck with it. So what do? Do you walk away and leave an open field to the Conservatives, or do you fight it? And we have to fight it to represent our communities. And I've known Tony for a good few years, and there's two things about Tony. One is that he's a realist, and one is that he's very shrewd. And you know, he comes here and stands on the moral high ground, but basically they can't win. The Lib Dems can't win, and why would you want to take the backlash of all the negative feelings against the Lib Dems in government and risk losing your £5,000 deposit?
Why would you want to do that?
Listen, if the Liberal Democrats were to stand a candidate, if that was their wish, and we really we really took on the Labour Party and the Tory Party in Derbyshire, as we've done in Chesterfield, believe me, we can prove that we can win. In fact, we've got an election next Thursday, just wait for the result.
Is the problem really that we just don't know how this is all going to work out? It's all a bit of a stab in the dark, isn't it?
I think to get politics in this a little bit, I'm concerned a little bit about that, because actually the Conservatives, I know, set out to actually not choose a standard political person, not a county councillor, not a district councillor. They've chosen a retired RAF senior officer for Leicestershire campaign, and I applaud that, because they're bringing somebody who's actually far more non-political, although he will be Conservative.
You don't look like you're happy with that.
That's not the case in Derbyshire. The Conservative candidate in Derbyshire is the current deputy leader of the Conservative group on the county council and a very political operator. Stood several times for the Conservatives for parliamentary seats. I don't think you can take politics out of this because of the way it's been set up. I think the risk is you either get somebody who knows something about how the police service operates, or you get somebody who comes in with no knowledge, and it's an almighty gamble, could go horrendously wrong.
Very briefly, Tony,
Anne has just raised a very interesting point. It's been a big surprise to a number of us who's going to be the Conservative candidate, and I tell you what, I think that in itself could be fraught with danger.
OK, well, I'm sure we'll all find out soon enough, won't we? Thanks very much to all my guests in the studio today. And of course, if you want to stand for Police Commissioner, you've got until mid-October to submit your nomination. Oh, and there's a small matter of a £5,000 deposit, which you'll lose, by the way, unless you get at least 5% of the votes. Still interested? Maybe not. Time to hand you back now to Andrew Neil. Thanks for watching.